Unlike garment makers, who really don't work with that much fabric, the gear maker, especially the hammock maker, can be dealing with lengths that will just kind of draw you right under a whole pile. Just about anything, well, except balloons, can be used to hold the fabric down to the floor when you get it spread out. Paint cans, sprayers, boxes, shoes, trash cans. It really doesn't make a whole lot of difference what you use as long as it keeps the fabric from moving around. Now the question is, how do you keep it all together?
Pinning is probably the most popular way of holding fabric in place to sew it. When you pin, it's a good idea to have a gauge so that you can measure that fabric that you're folding over or the seam that you're setting up. I'm setting up a folded hem here, and we're going to be working with this later on. So you set it up, you set the gauge. Now I keep my pins in this old Sucrets box. You want to pin perpendicular to the stitch line, if at all possible. That's very important for a couple of reasons. One is it makes it easier to get the pins in as you're working on it. Now I like to work on a raised surface. I'm working on an ironing board right now, and I like to work on a raised surface that is about standing height. Now if you see what happened on this, you can see how that pin went in a little bit crooked, and it bunched up the fabric and folded it because it wanted to twist it. This is sil nylon, so it's very soft and very slippery. So put the pins in perpendicularly to the seam line, to the stitch line, measuring it out if you want to or need to, measuring it out according to how big you want that to be. Now when you're stitching this, we'll be stitching down this way. When you're stitching this, you can stitch right up to the pin with the presser foot and then pull that pin out and continue on. I like long pins. I like pins that are about, probably 1.25 inches long. That's the length, that's about the length that I like. And I like a big knobby head on it so that I can get my hands, my big fat fingers around that head. I like using steel pins, partly because they're magnetic. And so when they fall on the floor, you can take a magnet and you can sweep the floor and pick them up. They're also strong. They don't want to bend. You can buy nickel pins, but they're pretty soft, and you can actually bend them trying to put them into hard, heavy fabric. But you want some kind of a box, some kind of a container to put your pins in, and there are a variety of containers around. I was working on that folded hem that I was pinning, and as I was running it through the machine, I want you to see what happened here. You see how that fabric folded underneath and got stuck under the presser foot? Let me see if I can get in close and give you a good shot of that. See that? That happens when you're not keeping good control of the fabric as it goes through. That fabric gets picked up and carried along and folded in underneath. It's particularly common in terms of things like sil nylon and very thin fabrics. So we're going to take that fabric out of the machine, and let me show you how to go about resolving that problem easily. I'm a big proponent of a tapered tailor's awl. And I'm going to take that awl and I'm going to pick up a stitch just behind or just before that fold occurs. Push it through, and I'm going to break that stitch. Now, I can pull that thread right through and release that fold. See how nice and easy that is? Well, Black Bishop, in his directions for the Black Cat tarp, which is available on hammockforums.net, suggests that you roll the fabric into a roll, leaving the edges that you're going to be sewing out, sticking out, so that you can work with them. I personally have difficulty with that system. I think it's a very good idea. It just doesn't work for me. When I try and roll them up, what happens is I end up getting the edges offset. My preference is to work with a bunch of fabric just as best I can. And I will line up the edges. I'll line up the edges, put it in the machine, and then I'll just go work slowly and carefully, stopping every once in a while or frequently to reach under and spread the fabric out so that it doesn't fold under like it did before.